In front of us today are two snap cap fountain pens that are made by Hongdian. And you can see they actually have many similarities and also a few notable differences. So I decided I'm going to make this a comparative review between these two pens rather than making separate videos for each of them. The first pen that I have here is the 920S. It is made out of brass with a shiny lacquered coating, and it's available in a wide variety of colors. Both of the finials are made out of chrome and flat without any real notable details. It has a bent metal clip, which is flexible, springy, and very functional. And the overall pen has a torpedo shape with thin finials that taper towards a thicker middle. There is a slight step down to the barrel, and there is engraving on the cap band that reads LT Hongdian 920. The cap pulls off to reveal a number 5 size stainless steel nib. It's available in extra fine, which is what I have here today, or medium. The grip section has a slight flare out at the front, and then it tapers back to a slight step up to the barrel. In the hand, it is a very well balanced pen. It has decent heft because of the metal construction. It comes in at 15 grams unposted. And when you post the cap, which posts deeply and securely, it comes in at 25 grams. When it's posted, it is very well balanced and a comfortable pen to use. The other pen that I have here today is the Hongdian 517D. And the overall size is very comparable to the 920S. This one is made out of brass as well, but it has a rubberized coating. And this one is not available in many colors. It's only available in this matte black finish. The trim on this is very similar to the 920S. It has flat top and bottom finials with a bent metal clip. All the trim is a gunmetal color. The clip is flexible, springy, and functional, but maybe a little bit stiffer than the 920. And again, it is a torpedo-shaped fountain pen, which has thin finials that taper towards a thicker midsection. This midsection does not have a step between the cap and barrel. The two pieces are flush. And on the back, we can see a silk-screened marking. It says Hongdian 517D. Just like the 920S, this is a snap cap fountain pen. It reveals a number 5 size black PVD coated nib, and this nib is available in extra fine, which is what I have here today, medium, or you can get it with a bent nib. The grip section is also long, and it has a slight step up to the barrel. It has a nice tapering design with a flare out in the front. And in the hand, the pen is a comfortable length to use for short notes and long writing sessions. The weight on this is a bit heavier than the 920. The 920 again was 15 grams. This one is 23 grams. The cap on this does post deeply, and it does add a bit of extra heft, now coming in at 35 grams compared to the 25 grams on the 920S. But this cap does not post securely. It easily falls right off of the back. Let's pull in a couple things to use for size comparisons. First up, I have a Pilot G2 rollerball pen, and then I also have a standard Sharpie. I have a few other snap cap fountain pens I also want to pull in. Here is a Parker 45. This is a vintage model from the 1960s. You can see in its cap form, it is very similar in overall shape as well as length. It is another torpedo-shaped fountain pen. I also wanted to pull in another Hongdian snap cap fountain pen. This is from the Black Forest series, and this pen is called the 1861 Pro. The Black Forest series is available in many different finishes, and this particular one is brass. And then I also wanted to pull in the Lamy Studio, which I have here in a brushed stainless steel finish. This one, again, is a torpedo-shaped fountain pen with flat finials. And this one, I would say, is more similar to the 517D in its styling because it has a flush cap to barrel. Overall lengths of all of these pens are pretty comparable. All of them, as I mentioned, are snap caps, so they simply pull right off. And let's take a look at how these compare without their caps. So overall lengths are fairly comparable. Let me see if I can line up just the nib tips here. So you get an idea of the overall length from the page. The Lamy Studio is maybe a little bit longer than the rest. Also, the Parker 45 is pretty comparable in overall length. Let's take a closer look at these nibs. In this case, all nibs are stainless steel and all are fully exposed, with the exception of the Parker 45. That one has a semi-hooded nib. The grip section on the Parker 45 tapers all the way back. The rest of these have flare-ups that taper back to a slight step up to the barrel. And then in terms of the posting experience, the Parker posts deeply and securely. The 920S also posts deeply and securely. In its posted form, it's pretty comparable in overall length to the Parker. The Hongdian 1861 Pro posts securely, but not very deeply. You can see it's quite a bit longer than the others. The 517D, as I mentioned, it posts deeply, but it doesn't post securely. So that could easily fall out. But in its posted form, it is fairly comparable to the others. It's a bit longer than the 920S. And then the Studio posts deeply and securely, and this one posts with a positive click. And that's because the back finial here matches the same diameter as the front portion of this grip section. Now, I wanted to make special note of that because I think that would have been a great addition to the 517D, as that would make this cap post securely too. Before we go into disassembling, I want to also give you an audible feeling for what it sounds like when you cap these pens. Here's the Studio, the 517D, the 1861 Pro, the 920S, and the Parker 45. In terms of disassembly, both of these pens come apart in a very similar way. No tools are required, but you might find gripping materials are useful to have. Let's take a look at the cap on the 920S. We can see there is a cap liner towards the bottom. That one I cannot remove. I believe it's riveted into the finial. So for typical cleaning, I run this under warm water or soak it with a little bit of mild detergent. Let's take a look at the 517D. You can see basically the exact same design. In terms of the pen body, you can unscrew the grip section. Now, one thing to note with the 517D is there is no O-ring at the top of these threads. And let's take a look for the 920S. Here you can see Hongdian has added an O-ring at the top, which gives you a bit of extra security to help prevent the barrel from unscrewing. Both of these pens have a converter that was included with them, and those converters pull straight out. They are swappable converters, and if you want, you could use a regular Hongdian cartridge, which has a 3.4 millimeter bore on either of these grip sections. The converter, to disassemble it, you would pull off this back sleeve. On the 920S, this back sleeve is really stuck and I can't get it to pull off even. Oh, I got it with the gripping materials. That was the first time it did that. Fantastic. So now that we've gotten that sleeve off, Let's see if we can pull it apart. Awesome, that's fantastic. Now I can pull this apart for easy cleaning. And then also it does have a little agitator, which you can remove if you want. I don't mind those, so I typically keep them in. The 517D, this converter's sleeve has been easy to pull off on a regular basis. And again, the piston can be pulled straight through the back. Now in terms of the grip sections with the nib units, the nibs can be unscrewed. You can see that they are held in this nib collar. There is no O-ring or anything that holds that in place into the grip section, so you are only relying on these threads. And let's do the same thing for the 517D. Again, same situation. Now in terms of removing the nib and feed, these should be friction fit into this collar, but I have not been able to remove it even with my gripping materials. So that's the case for the 517D as well as the 920S. And let's see, maybe I will be lucky and be able to remove it today. No, it is very stuck. But both of these nib units are fully swappable and they are the same nibs, just coated in a different coloring. So for today, both of these pens are fully disassembled. Let's go ahead and reassemble them. I'm gonna start with the converters. We'll put the piston through the back and then slide the sleeve over the back to secure it in place. Then I'll do the same thing for the other pen. There aren't any ribs or anything. It just is secured with tension. And then let's put the nib units back into their grip sections. And I'll reattach the converter. Same thing for the 517D. You may notice a little bit of extra ink on my fingers. I just cleaned these out before filming. And once we get those converters in place, we're going to reinstall our barrels. Again, this one has that nice O-ring to help secure it so it doesn't get unscrewed. And then we'll go ahead and install our caps. And at this point, we're ready to ink up. To keep the comparison fair, I'm going to use one standard ink for both of these pens, and I selected Waterman Serenity Blue. Take the cap off the bottle of ink. And we'll start off with the 920S. Cap comes off. We'll unscrew the barrel. Want to make sure the piston in that converter is all the way down. Put the nib into the ink and screw up the piston. In order to get a full fill, I'm going to expel the ink and then draw it up one more time. That looks like a nice full fill. Go ahead and wipe off our nib and our grip section. Throw the barrel back on the pen. And the cap. We'll move over to the 517D. Again, taking the cap off, as well as the barrel. That barrel does unscrew quite easily. The threads are very smooth between the two components, but as I mentioned, it also doesn't have that O-ring. We'll make sure that the piston is extended all the way down. Put the nib into ink and screw up the piston. And I'm going to expel it again. Try and push out extra air and then draw it up one more time. Again, that looks like a great fill. Go ahead and wipe off the nib and the grip section. Put the barrel back on the pen, as well as the cap. Cap up our ink. And at this point, we're ready to write. This is Clairefontaine Triumph paper, and this is the Hongdian 920S. Today we are writing with a stainless steel fine nib. And it is a beautifully tuned nib. It's smooth, it's wet, it doesn't have much bounce or softness, but it is a workhorse of a nib and has been extremely reliable. Our ink, as we just saw, is from Waterman. And it's called Serenity Blue. I did lift up a little bit when I did that swoop on the Y. That's not a skip, that was just me. For flex, here's no pressure and adding a bit. You can see you get maybe a little bit of line variation, but not much. I was pressing pretty hard there. For comparisons purposes, I'm going to just draw 2 lines here, and we'll measure them in a minute after they dry. And then for reverse writing, it is fairly smooth, maybe a little bit scratchy. Not as smooth as the front ways up. And the T did dry out. So personally, I wouldn't use this for reverse writing. This pen I would mostly use for quick paste writing because it doesn't provide much line variation. But it is a very reliable writer. Let me go ahead and switch over to the 517D. And again, this one has a fine nib as well. It's a little harder to see because of that black PVD coating. The nib is the same style though. And it's also stainless steel. Now, just looking at how these pens perform on the page, you might say the 517 looks a lot wetter than the 920S. And right now, yes, I would agree with that. However, that's not how this pen started off. In fact, when I first got this pen, I found that it hard started and often dried out as I was writing. When I inspected the pen under my jeweler's loupe, I found that the tines were a little bit too tight. So I took some brass shims and spread out those tines. Now that I have, it is a very wet writer and it's been consistent and reliable. It also is a little bit wetter than the 920S is out of the box. Our ink is the same. And then for line variation, there's no extra pressure, adding a bit. Again, you don't really get very much line variation. I'll do the same lines down here. And then for reverse writing, this one is a bit more scratchy than the 920S. That might be because I opened up the tines. But you can see the ink flow also is quite a bit wetter. The 920S dried out. This one dried out a little bit as I crossed the T, but it's still legible. So this one, I mean, you could consider reverse writing for a thinner line. But in general, I tend not to reverse write. If I want a thinner line, I'll grab a different pen. Of course, you might be out and about and need a thinner line for maybe less high quality paper, in which case you could consider reverse writing with this pen. So I drew these 2 extra lines below the figure 8s because for Fountain Pen Day, I picked this up from goldspot.com. This is Dominant Industries millimeter pad, and it has these nice millimeter line markings so you can measure the thickness of your lines. And I wanted to try and do that today. For the 920S, it looks like the normal line thickness is about 0.3 millimeters. And when you add some pressure, you can get up to maybe 0.5. So that's a decent amount of line variation. That's going basically from a fine to a medium. And then let's take a look for the 517D. Again, this is a nib that I did tune a little bit. So it looks like under normal writing, it's about 0.4, so 0.1 millimeters thicker than the 920S. And it's maybe between 0.6 and 0.7 when it's flexed. I would probably say 0.7, so a little bit wider too. Again, take the caveat that I did personally tune that nib. So it probably out of the box, most of the time will write more like the 920S. So what do I think of the 517D and Hongdian 920S? I am a big fan of both of these snap cap pens. I love the form factor. I think the overall styling, this torpedo with flat top and bottom, is classic, iconic. It is not groundbreaking by any means, but it's a very attractive pen in the hand. I love their snap cap mechanisms. It makes it a great pen to carry with you. It allows you to jot a quick note and cap your pen and be on your way. The capping mechanisms feel secure and robust, like the caps are not going to come off in your pocket, and they do a great job sealing the nib. Both of the pens are very comfortable in the hand. The 920S has a more slick feel because of the shiny lacquer coating. Also, I forgot to mention the grip section is a little bit thinner. This one goes down to about 7 millimeters at the thinnest point, whereas the 517D is a little bit thicker and it comes down to about 8 millimeters at the thinnest point. Also in the hand, the 517D feels a little bit more secure. It has that nice rubberized coating, which gives you nice grip, and it feels very comfortable in the hand. But I will add the caveat that because this is a matte coating, I find if you have kind of greasy fingers, you can see it maybe a little bit back there, that it does show up as shiny spots on the pen. That is not the case with the 920S because of this nice shiny coating. Also, I like the fact that the 920S is available in many colors. That's not the case for the 517D, and I think that's just because of the nature of the material. The other thing that I like about the 920S over the 517D is the fact that this has an O-ring at the bottom of the grip section, and that makes sure that the barrel does not get unscrewed as you're using the pen. I haven't really had that issue with the 517D, but I do feel in the hand that it isn't all that secure, so I think some people may have that be an issue. The other issue that I've had with the 517D, and I mentioned it during the writing sample, is out of the box, this nib was a little bit starved of ink and I needed to spread out the tines. Now, I don't know if that's because of the PVD black coating or if that's just build variation and unfortunate luck on my part. But the 920S has the exact same nib unit and it has a silver coating instead of the black PVD coating, and it wrote great right out of the box. The other thing to mention about the 517D is the fact that the cap does not post securely. It posts deeply, and it does become a nice length pen when it's posted, but the cap easily falls off. So I tend not to use this pen posted. I think that is a little bit unfortunate, and it could have been an easy fix to simply make the back finial the same diameter as the top of this grip section. That way, just like the Lamy Studio, this cap could click in place. But overall, I'm a big fan of both of these pens. I think they are fantastic values. Both of these typically can be bought for under 20 US dollars. Both of them were generously sent to me for review from Hongdian. Thank you so much. You guys have been great supporters of this channel, and I genuinely love your products. And that just leaves me to say, thank you for watching.